Go ahead and call this agenda meeting to order, and we'll stand for the invocation by Commissioner Thompson, and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, we pray for wisdom, strength, and courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. May we put the interest of others above our own and act with love for the common good. Guide us during this meeting as we discuss matters on the agenda with regard to our city. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and Carly, if you can call the roll, please.
Heidinger?
Here.
McAleese?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Penny?
Here. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. This morning, we will conduct an agenda meeting for the July 1st regular commission meeting, scheduled for 9 a.m., immediately followed by an administrative workshop. So right now, we're just going to look over the items for next week. No public hearings, no unfinished business, no consent agenda. Okay, and new business will be an ordinance number 2025-02. And this is an ordinance of the City of South Pasadena, Florida, amending Chapter 90, Emergency Management, Section 1, Authority of Incident Commander, subsection A, providing for a permanent waiver of the incident commander's $50,000 emergency expenditure limit, get that out, providing for severability and providing for an effective date. This is the first reading. And the only other item we have is a resolution number 2025-08, and this is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of South Pasadena, Florida, certifying the proposed millage rate to the county property appraiser for fiscal year 25-26. That I know we're going to be discussing today. Anybody have any objections to any of these or any questions concerning these items?
No.
All right, then these items will be on the agenda next week for us to vote on. And I think that's all we have. So we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting and move down to our workshop. All right, we're going to go ahead and call the workshop to order and ask Carly to call the roll one more time.
Heidinger?
Here.
McAleese?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Penny?
Here. One item on the agenda, and that is the budget. So we're going to jump right into this. I'm assuming you're going to go over the new capital plan first, or are you going to jump somewhere else?
Yeah, well, it's not gonna be long, I threw those in there to show some of the numbers did change. I guess where I got a list of items that I changed on here. The biggest thing I wanted to start with is at the last meeting, on page 7, you had asked about, was the server in the budget, and page 7 is the
List of everything.
list of everything, and you can see there, we included $44,300 for the server upgrade, and I wasn't sure if I had mentioned, we put in $21,500 for access point switches at City Hall and the annex. And also up in there is $35,000 that he quoted for the new computers to bring them up, phase out the Windows 10 to bring all the computers up. Our plan is to start in this fiscal year using the audio-visual money, the 80,000 we had budgeted, start that process, and then it'll roll into next year. So we may not need that entire 35. We may be spending some of it this year.
access point should help us with our connection to the Wi-Fi.
So, yeah, you had asked about that at the end of the last meeting, and I was sure it was in there. I just had to take a second look, so, to make sure, so.
Good, thank you.
Other than that, I think like on page 2, you can see, and I think I pointed this out at the last meeting, I basically spread the construction of the city hall over 26, 27, and 28. Starting in the first year, I had the design, architect and engineer design and permitting, and I gave a portion of the project management to the year, so, and then assumed starting construction in 27. You see the $5,274,000 there, and then some of the project management, and then I figured like 18 months, so I figured going into 28 would probably finish the project. So, if you look at it, we don't have the cash flow on here, but obviously in 27, when that 5 million hits, we would have to come up with financing at the city hall.
Yeah.
So, and see what FEMA would cover, if anything, so that's kind of an unknown at this point in time.
Well, in addition to that, I had a conversation with Representative Lyndon Cheney's guy the other day, or after the last meeting, and he sent us the paperwork, which I've shared with Carly, on how to get maybe a sponsor for a local funding appropriations bill. So we're gonna pursue that towards this.
I was thinking, I just saw some stuff that Nick Shelley put out, and all this funding he got for different places around here, and I'm thinking, why can't we get that? So it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think we may need to think about, and not to get off the subject matter, sorry, Jim, we may need to think about engaging a lobbyist at this point to move forward for what it would cost. I mean, just something to talk about future, to secure us as many state dollars as we can get.
Yeah. Yeah, be a good idea.
Yeah. So,
Something
anyway.
to look at, see what the
Didn't mean-
cost would be.
What would that cost?
A lobbyist?
I know we looked at it at one point, didn't we?
Yes, I'm actually talking with some representatives from Gray Robinson
Okay.
about them assisting us, and we're trying to get some understanding of the process, if there's potential for funding when you're asking for a project to receive funds. If part of that funding can help pay for the lobbyists and assistants and like grant writing.
I gotcha.
So we're working through that
Okay.
at the moment with Gray Robinson.
So,
So,
cool. Start it up. Thank you.
yep, that's what we're working on.
And now I see you got 572,000 for City Hall design and permitting going into the new year. How about and you got 500,000 for the old fire station rehab, which I think though, unless we get a new appraisal, we're limited to 475, aren't we,
Yeah,
or
I
something?
think it might be less than that even.
But still having a little extra in there ain't gonna hurt. Okay. Other alternatives to a city hall would be nice, to see how that works out. If something were to come up.
Basically,
Yeah.
the
it's way down.
80,000 that we had scheduled in 26 for AV, I rolled that forward to 28. That's when the new city hall would be done, so I did push that forward in these numbers. I'm looking to see what else might have been in there. City hall generator, I rolled that forward also to 2028. It was 618,750. There would have been grant revenue of about 464,000, so the net cost out of there is 154. After I did that, I was thinking, and I might need to talk with Chief about this, don't know if we should keep that in the 26 budget. Obviously, we talked about we wouldn't do it if we rebuilt City Hall, but if our plans changed, he had to put in the application, and part of the process is, hey, you gotta have it budgeted, so if I pull it out of the budget,
Right.
it's kind of like we're withdrawing that, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Chief, or?
Yeah, so, good question, Jim. What I've done is, I've already changed the priority with the LMS, so the Public Work Annex Generator is now our priority project. A lot of times what they do is, even though there's a pool of funding available, they try to make sure each municipality gets at least one project submitted. So in this case, we would most likely get that one submitted, and then the other one's there in case there's extra money, or what they call Tier 2 money, if there's money's left over. But we certainly would not want to go through the application process if it was not going to be used in the location it's submitted for. Does that make sense? So whatever project would have to be, would have to include that generator as is in the location it's designed, so.
Well, I'm sure it would be used here when we rebuilt as part of it, so are you saying that we do need to leave it into 26 then, just so we can apply?
So you
I mean, is
have,
there a time limit you have to spend the money?
no, but you do get, there is better scoring in the application process if you have your funding identified. If you say, well, we're gonna find it somehow, somewhere, they tend not to score that as high as having it identified.
Gotcha.
So I guess it would be, my thought would be if we were gonna, if we had a better use for it, obviously, take it there, but if we could use it as a marker in case that were to become available, then, leave it there, if that makes sense.
And the mobile generator we talked about, that we would maybe store at the old fire station bay or something, and then we would bring it over here
Mhm.
to use until we rebuilt or wherever we were at.
Mhm.
Is that something that's in the budget?
Yes,
Jim,
yeah,
as well?
yeah, we put it in there,
Okay.
And that's, a lot of people are going to that. Unfortunately for HMGP, a portable generator is ineligible. It's an ineligible project. They, like, if it's gonna be a generator project, they want fixed. But a lot of places, as part of their mitigation strategy, put in transfer switches and hookups, and then that way they can have one generator, but depending on where they need it, move it around. I've seen it at recreation centers. I've seen it at, certain city facilities. So that could be a strategy also.
There's a lot of condominiums that were built, a lot of the towers that don't have generators for their elevators if something were to go down, if there was an issue. But they have, a lot of them have installed where they can just connect to a portable one if they need to, so,
It's a transfer switch and a hookup.
yeah.
Pasadena Community Church is a perfect example. When we
Right.
go to that EOC, we bring a portable generator with it, but the transfer switch and the hookup is already in place. And we practice it each year. It's a simple, plug and play type situation.
So I guess we're going to move the 618 back into 26?
That's what I'm thinking, and also the revenue, so, you're talking a net of 150,000 in the big picture. It's not a big dollar amount, because I would budget the revenue for the grant, so.
Okay, all right. So everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's any questions
Page 3.
about anything.
So under the City Hall debt service, didn't see anything in there for 26, but I see it for 26, 27, and so on and so on, but 25.
Right, well, the debt service, like I said, I planned on design in 26, getting the plans and all that, construction actually starting in,
Oh, so this
in
is for the,
next year. So
Gotcha.
that would be for the rebuild.
Yeah.
And I think I did a 15-year based on 9.4. If you add up all those items for those 3 years, it was 9.4 million.
right,
So-
yeah, and
I just did it.
I think my brain was still on the debt service for the fire station, so. I was like, I know we paid something this year.
So the
Okay,
5-year plan, that's something we would have to think about funding for the.
yeah, and of course, if prices go up and everything else, right,
And I
yeah.
mean, you have alternatives, I think that was 15-year, you could go 30, when we did the fire station financing, they told us banks don't like to go more than 15, because we didn't get a real bond per se. It's bank financing, even though they call it a revenue bond. And he said they don't like to go more than 15, but you could go 30 and bring that debt service down to maybe 500,000 if you went over a 30-year term, but you'd probably have to do a bond on it, so. So there's alternatives as we go through this. I just wanted to throw it in the
right.
5-year plan so we can see it.
Lead on, where we going?
On Exhibit A1 there, starting on page 5, it's just a recap of the 2026, and based on that budget, we'd be appropriating about $1,332,000, or taking that from savings for the year. The items in red are the items that got changed, and we did amend our 25 budget just recently. Those items in red were the changes to that budget since I gave this to you the last time. So it's really just an updated picture of where we're at, so.
Is the grant income this year the 75% of the cost of the generator? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes.
Okay.
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
That's the public works one. I think there's 4,000
Yeah,
in environmental recycling grant in there also.
okay.
And I'm going by memory, we have that, Resilient Florida, I think that may be included in that number also. Because the Public Works generator is 412,000, so 75% of that would be in the grant. There's 4,000 for a recycle grant, and I think I put the 175 Resilient Florida in there also. We're supposed to get that money back as soon as that process is done, so.
Okay.
There. Exhibit B is just our general fund budget as it sets right now. I did not change the millage at this point. It reflects the 5.175 mills. You can see on page 9, the revenue that I budgeted was $4,713,000, which is actually less than the $4,913 previous year. That's due to the decrease in taxable value for the year. On page 10, down at the bottom, you see appropriated fund balance. So at that rate, we'd have a deficit for the year of $633,845. So, going to the very end of that budget on page 20, at the very end, I did a transfer of $450,000. We talked about that at the last meeting. $450,000 from public service taxes to the capital improvement fund would be to help fund the debt servicing on the fire station. And then the transfer to capital improvement fund, $192,620. That's to cover items that we spend out of the capital improvement fund that aren't eligible to use infrastructure monies, penny for Pinellas. You can only use it for infrastructure, basically. Okay. And we do buy things out of the capital fund that aren't technically infrastructure, but they're usually large purchases, or we like computers as the biggest item. Those aren't infrastructure, but we tend to capitalize them, so. So that's also going to the capital improvements fund. And that's all I really wanted to show you on that, but it has the detail for the entire general fund. I didn't know, did you want to bring up your subject?
Now,
Oh, yeah.
you let me know when.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay. Brief somewhat off.
Because it will affect this.
Yes, I guess a tiny bit, yeah. So we have some positive news. We've had an applicant, accept the position of planner with the city. So we'll be bringing somebody on board. Working through some of that hiring process, there are a few changes we'd like to make to the city's current, license and certification incentive plan. The policy that we currently have in place was written and approved in 2022, and the city did not have a planner on staff. So there's a couple of certifications that we would like to encourage him to get, but would not necessarily be required, which is what our incentive pay policy is for. So we would like to add certify, he has his master's, he's got the appropriate certifications to do the job, but there's additional certifications that are positive, that help, that Terry would like for him to pursue, and he's agreed to do that. And so one of those is AICP, it's a planning certification that she'd like him to get. So I'd like to add that to our certification policy, which would mean, all of our incentives are roughly $1,200 a year if you get that certification. But again, the planner isn't listed anywhere in that policy right now because we didn't have a planner when we wrote it.
Understand.
Like, we
Yeah.
didn't have the position, it wasn't budget, nothing, because it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'd like to amend the incentive pay policy to add that in to help encourage him to get certifications that the city would benefit from.
Yeah.
And then the other is our current inspector, Mike, happens to also be a certified fire inspector. He joined the city already having had that certification. It's not been a requirement from the city for him to have it, but he has maintained it on his own. Following the hurricanes that we had last year, it became pretty evident that him having that extra certification could be potentially beneficial to the city when we are really just kind of slammed. It would be helpful to be able to utilize that certification if needed, but it's not required for his position because there's separation there from fire inspector currently, which is maintained by the fire department. But we would like to encourage him to maintain that certification, so we would like to add fire inspector to the incentive list for the inspector position, if that makes sense. So not a requirement.
For his continuing education or renewal or
Yes,
whatever.
to basically encourage him to keep that, because in the instances that it is useful to the city, it's great for him
Yeah.
to have it. So I would like to amend the incentive policy to add those two certifications, if you all are
Makes
okay
sense.
with that.
So you
Does
wouldn't
the,
wanna, go ahead.
Just a quick question. So for the planner, is there like a time that he has to get this done? Something to get his?
No, so the incentive policy, we've not required that.
Okay.
There are certain certifications for certain jobs that you have to get within a specific time. For example, he has to get his certified floodplain manager certification within a year of hire. He's already very close to that. He just needs to sit for the exam, so that one shouldn't be
So
an issue.
technically, it's all in wording. It's not gonna cost us anything until he moves forward with it.
Yeah, if he doesn't get it, it doesn't cost us anything.
Right.
If he gets it, he would
Which-
get $1,200 a year.
Yeah,
to
we had
have
mentioned
it.
that he had agreed to get it, so I didn't know if you guys had said, okay, well, then we want you to have it,
No,
but then.
no, he came into his interview saying, I want to pursue this. It was written into our posting that this was preferred but not required.
Got it.
And so we would like for him to get it. We'd like to encourage that.
Okay.
We think we'll do it either way, but I feel like it's the right thing to do if you're encouraging someone to get a certification, that you provide a financial incentive.
Yeah, yeah.
So you wouldn't wanna make it a requirement
For the
for
planner,
future?
Terry didn't think that it was necessary.
Okay.
Because there's other planning certifications that are required to really do the job, and to be completely honest, it's hard to find qualified people.
That's true.
So to make it even more restrictive going forward may end up holding the city back, rather than
Right.
saying, if you can do the job with these certifications, that's great, and then we would like you to continue to develop
Okay,
once
makes
you're
sense.
here, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, if that's okay with you, I'd like to amend the policy.
Yeah, that
in
makes
those-
sense.
Do we need to add that to the next week's?
No, I just need consensus. The handbook says that just with your approval, we can amend the policy, so if I have your,
We're all in agreement?
Yes.
Absolutely.
okay,
All right.
thank you very much.
Yep.
Now, add to the budget 1,200, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
For one or for two? Because we have the fire marshal, then we had. the
Yeah,
new
so it would
plan.
be 1,200 for the fire inspector and then 1,200
Right.
for the planner.
Is that what you had?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Next section, let's talk about millage, I guess. Page 21 is where I calculated some of the, what they call statutory rates. Just to recap real quick, our current year gross taxable value is $934,200,734. It's a decrease from last year's taxable values of almost 4%, $38.3 million reduction. And I think I mentioned before, it's about 198,000 decrease in tax because of that, if you keep the millage rate the same at the 5.175. I had fun doing the rollback rate this year because it's a very unusual year. Normally, you take your gross taxable value and you deduct new construction. Our new construction was a negative number, so when you deduct a negative, you actually add it. So I had to check with the trim people to make sure that that was the case, and they're saying, yes, it is. So I did that computation, and the rollback that I came up with is rollback is actually a little bit of a roll-up because of the decrease in values, but it's 5.3076 is what I came up with.
And it's still 74,000 short of fully covering it.
Yes. Yes. In addition to that, to come up with the majority vote rate, you take your rollback rate and you multiply it by every year the factor changes. It was 4.5%, I think, or something like that, increase in personal income, I think it was, for the state, so.
When is the final vote for the village?
When is the final vote? September 15th?
September 15th?
September 15th?
Okay. I know Mark's because you knew. What we're gonna vote on next week is, like, we set a millage rate level. You can't go higher, but you can go lower.
Correct.
So on the final vote in September, we can say, you know what, this didn't come through, or insurance went down, or whatever, and we don't need that much, we can always vote to make it lower. So what we vote on next week will be this is what we're starting at, and we could change that. So that's just how that part works out. And I'm looking here, and I know it would take a 5-0 vote, take all of us, right? Is that a majority? Major majority? If we wanted to go like, if we wanted to do like the 6.39, the one that's gonna bring in an extra months of reserves,
That I
All
think
this
is
we got.
unanimous.
unanimous, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's unanimous.
So I know we've got a lot of expenditures coming up, especially with City Hall and everything else. And I've never been a proponent for increasing, but I don't know what else to do. Jim's already got it out there, and I'm sure he was gonna get there at a point. But if you look at page 26 in your packet, this gives you an idea of what the increase would be depending on the assessed value of a home. So if we were to do like the 6.1%, which is the one at the very bottom there, and $1 million home, you're looking at an $880 a year increase in their taxes. On a $500,000 home, looking at $417,000, and then as you can go down, you can see the differences it would make in those people's taxes. It's a larger increase than we've done in the past. Because 6.39% three would probably be more than that. We're probably looking at $950 for that $1 million home, that their taxes would go up. And that's on a yearly basis. I don't know, I just know we need to get some money in here to help pay for the stuff that's gonna be going on, because you get loans and you get the debt service, that's also a big increase for the city, so.
People got hit so hard. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, so we could just go with the, like the 6.1, and then at the end, change it to something else. But I hate to put us too low, and then we find out there's other issues gonna happen before, September, and then we can't go up anymore. But Jim has recommended the 5.8, which is good. I mean, it brings in an extra 451, which is about half a month of reserves, basically, coming in. And that would be, looking back at page 26 again, on a $1 million home would be a $661 increase. And looking down as you go, some of the condos, what they're going for now, if you're looking for one like 225, it's $121 a year. That's a year, so it's $10 a month, basically increase. So we could go with Jim's recommendation. We could go a little higher. Let you guys tell me what you want to do.
Well, the 5 years I've been on this commission, we've always, great job, Jim and the whole team, getting a great budget and everything, but we always have that, well, it's only this much more per month conversation, and I'm over it. I'm done. I'm not supporting any tax increase out of anybody's pocket whatsoever this year. I mean, this city's been hammered enough. To that point, I also think that, and Jim's done a great job in that regard with our reserves, I think we tend to have significantly higher reserves than anybody around us. So I think we can kind of absorb the $200,000 shortfall this year and not pass it on to our constituents. And that's where I am on that.
So that would be like a 5.5 one there, that would at least keep us out of the negative.
What's that page again with all those breaks?
Page 21
That's it.
has the 5.5 on it. I don't think that page 26 shows. but-
Yeah.
Oh, it does show the 5.5.
I'm curious
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
maybe I misunderstood, because the rollback rate to me isn't it supposed to be that generates you the exact same income that you had the last year, which shows 5.32 million, but yet the rollback rate shows 4.8 million. And then the difference, it's a decrease, it's cheaper, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how come the rollback rate proceeds at 100% and 97 don't match the actual prior ad valorem taxes. That's my understanding of a rollback rate.
It was mine prior to this year also. And I was gonna send you all a copy of Lee County sent a letter to its citizens when Ian hit, and kind of tried to explain the process. And that's why I had to consult with the trim people on the calculation of the rollback. See, they give us that number July 1st, so I don't have that number. I have to calculate it on my own.
Okay.
And it's because of the negative new construction, and the Lee County letter attempted to explain the reasoning for it, but I'm still in the fog on it, so.
Well, if you are, that makes me feel better.
So,
Yeah, because you would think rollback would be
their explanation.
zero at the bottom instead of
Right.
negative 74,000.
Yeah.
Well, typically, the rollback's gonna go up in a year of decreasing values anyway, but but that negative, new construction boosted it, made it worse, so, that's where we're at, and I would just, I like the 5.8709, I hate to raise taxes, but, we still have union negotiations to go through. None of that is built into these numbers. I got some ideas in my head, but I wanted to see a little bit of a surplus to cover what they're asking for. Because what they're asking for is very expensive. Doesn't mean they're gonna get it, but
the meeting we're having on Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So,
Are we gonna be able to see any of that before the meeting, or is it all be presented at the meeting?
I have to present it at the meeting.
At the meeting?
At the meeting.
Okay.
I'm on board with Arthur, because we can always come down, once we tentatively adopt this, we're limiting us, have a lot of things going on with City Hall and all that. And I didn't think that 2/3 vote, I didn't think you'd go for it because it's over 6. That's why I'm recommending 5.87, but 09, but I'm actually on board with Arthur in his thought process, but that's your decision you have to make, so. I think I mentioned in my mail to you when I did 2024, it looked like we got about 9.5 months in reserve. When I started at the city, we had 13 months. And when they changed the laws and started limiting the millages, we actually went down to 6 months, and we did it very willingly. But
I remember those years, it was every year we would not increase, and then we got to the point where we were in debt, we were behind, and the commission just kept saying, no, we're not gonna increase the military, so we kept taking money out of reserves every year. As long as we don't fall back into that pattern again, because that's a mistake. We gotta maintain our reserve, at least maintain what we have, if nothing else, the best we can for these emergencies that come up, but, I mean, doing it 1 year might be okay, as long as it doesn't fall into a pattern, like I said, because that pattern was
I agree 100%.
disastrous,
That's my point. This is not the year to raise taxes,
yeah.
period.
What do you guys suggest?
Well, I'm still scratching my head. The rollback rate shows us losing less money than staying at the current rate.
Yeah.
You know, and somebody's.
That's why I looked at the
Explain
five-
that. It's
why I looked at the
$74,000
5.5,
deficit.
yeah,
You know, the
so-
rollback rate, $74,000 deficit is pretty easy to swallow.
Yeah.
People got hit awful hard this year.
Exactly.
I mean, so many people didn't have insurance,
Here's the
because they
bottom-
couldn't afford it.
Right.
And, I mean, it just seemed, I know that we're trying to keep a certain amount, but every little bit is just
Well, you know, the
killing
county,
us.
this is nothing compared to what the county's gonna do.
I know,
this.
and the county's gonna hit them again.
Yeah.
Well, the
county's
thing is,
big.
we've got everybody whose homes were damaged or destroyed, their values have gone down, they're out of pocket. Now, we're looking to see, because the values have gone down, we gotta raise your taxes, so we can make, I can't do that. But, any other year, last 5 years, I've voted for these negligible increases, but it won't be happening this year.
So, we're gonna do a rollback, or do a little higher than rollback, to keep it out of that negative number.
Again, what you do today is not set in stone.
Right.
But-
This is just
but-
the absolute cap.
But if we went with rollback, there is no lower.
you can't go.
Well, you couldn't go higher, but,
You couldn't, correct,
and
whatever
lower,
you
it
decide
just put
on.
us in debt, so.
But
Because we
we're
still
gonna
have
be-
to finalize the rest of the budget in August and September, so what you decide on cannot go up later.
But what we decide today will be published.
Yes.
Yes, correct. It will be published, but it's not final. You have to
Hard
vote
in
on
stone
this
yet,
three more times?
yeah.
Well, if we keep the existing millage rate, it's also effectively a tax cut for everybody, you know?
Of course, they won't see that because of the county going up. I've always had to sit down with people and explain to them,
Yeah.
this little line right here is us.
Yeah.
20 lines that went up to 1,000 a year,
Yeah.
well, that's county. So, because they'll come in and ask us, so we can explain that to them when they come in. I've never had a problem sitting down with somebody, the difference is. So, rollback? I'm fine with rollback, you guys want to do rollback?
I'm a rollback guy.
It's a tough one.
But I agree with what the mayor said. We can't get into a pattern of this. This has kind of got to be, we need to do this, we have to, we got to make it happen kind of thing. But once the dust settles, we got to get back to reality.
But if we went to the 5.5, we could settle on the 5.3 in the end, right?
Correct.
Or the existing, but
You can go down to anything
we'll
below
go
it.
down, right.
You just can't go up.
I am not a fan of being negative, of,
I know, but-
dipping into our reserve funds at all. I think there's so much going on in the city right now, you can't afford to do that with the potential building and the, old fire station and everything else. You at least have to have a break-even budget.
We don't know what's gonna happen with storm season. We don't know.
Yeah, and this obviously is my first time, but
So what is in, what's in reserve right now, month-wise? Like how many months, right now?
About 9.
9?
I don't know.
About, or the last time you
Well,
looked?
I don't know, you gotta realize your fund balance, like in the current year, you collect your property taxes up front, so you're flush with money, but by the end of the year, we were at 9.5 at the end of '24, and with the storms this year, I can't see it getting better than 9.5. I think it might creep backwards.
When I came into the commission in 17 years ago, whatever that was.
Yeah, you're like 8.
Yeah, that was, 2009. So, we had like 12 months, a little over 12 months. Within probably 7, 8 years, we were down to 6 by dipping and dipping and dipping and dipping. I think we got even lower than that for a point there, didn't we, Jim? Like, did we get down to 5 or 4 for a period?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, 9 is good. If we can maintain 9, I'd hate to see us go lower than 7.5 months. Because our reserves, you talk about a reserve of what we have compared to 7 months of what would take to run this city for seven months, let's say that. Whereas another city like St. Pete, just 3 months of their reserves triples or quadruples whatever we would have. It's a lot more income coming in. We're a smaller city, of course, so. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm not even opposed to existing, because that would be a lower rate, but now we're dipping in. We're dipping more in. We're not just not putting any more in, we're taking more out. I'd like to see it at least where we're not taking anything out of reserves. I don't know what that number would be, if that would be, what, 5.4?
What I recommended, I thought, but.
Well, 5.8 is gonna bring in 451 extra.
And 5.54, right, is almost break even for a city this size.
The difficulty we have in comparing to other cities as well is that we do not have nearly the same number of revenue streams that other cities have. For example, we've been kind of communicating and
Parking
studying with
things.
the beaches, and they have major income just from things like parking and switching from parking meters to Park Mobile, which for several of the beach communities brought in like 2 and 3 times what they even thought that they would get just from parking. And then they have bed taxes from hotels. They have different revenue streams that they can help supplement what's going on in their city. This is basically what we've got.
Yeah.
So
Property taxes go away,
it's,
the governor's suggesting.
and the future of FEMA being, we'll just say that staff has concerns about the long-term financial stability because of there being potential changes right now. So when we have staff meetings about it, it's less about what we're looking at next year and what we're looking at, say, in the next 5. So it's concerning, we'll put it that way. It's concerning. So,
Yeah, no, we're looking at this sheet, but if you look at the page 24 and 25, your break-even millage rate at 100% is the 5.8709 that I gave you. If you assume that we're only gonna spend, when I say 97% of my budgeted expenditures, that drops to the 55608, 5.
That's where the 451
Yeah, and that's
comes
on
in.
page 25, and if you look at the line that says deficit or surplus, you know, that's what I'm looking at. It's break even, it's $3, okay? That's about as low as I could get it, and that's what I'm playing with here, so if you're talking about a break-even budget, those are the numbers, and at 100%, if I spend 100% of what I budget, it's the number that I gave you, the 5.8709, that's break-even, so that's where those numbers came from.
So the 5.8 is break even, but if we only spend 97% of the budget, that's where the 451,000 comes in? At the bottom, on page 21? Because it shows a,
Well, what I'm saying here is, at the bottom of this sheet is, it's comparing it to last year's budgeted revenues, okay? So, I think you're apples and oranges here. I'm trying to get you to a break even based on your numbers. The
5.87.
the percentages on the bottom of these sheets here on page 25, those are percent over rollback. And that's what you're gonna be looking at in your advertisement. So the 2.8709, based on I'm trying to look here, is a 10.61% increase over rollback, okay? And I think that's what you have to look at, because it's gonna be an increase. Anything over rollback's gonna be an increase, because you're gonna advertise it as an increase. Because the concept is exactly what Tom said it was, it's like keeping, you know, revenue the same on the same properties. And, you know, so in theory, that's what it should be doing, but even though it doesn't seem like it, so.
The Save Our Homes plan that's out there for people that keep their homes and keep moving. How does that affect someone that builds a new home? Do they lose that Save Our Homes on their property value, or that nothing to do with it?
Yeah, it's like when my mom moved here, portability, whatever, Sumter County transferred down here.
Okay, and these people that like sell their condos or whatever, and they take that portability with them, but the new buyer comes in at the higher rate.
I mean, to me, you're improving your home. I mean, if you put $100,000 addition on, I would think that they would bump it based on the appraised value.
Yeah.
So rebuilding would be about the same in my mind. I would think they would be bumping it up.
Trust me, they do. We put a new bathroom.
I did an addition
County found out about it
10
real
years
quick.
ago, and it took the county 3 years to add it to my, but they did. It was like an $80,000 addition, and they added it to my value, so.
Right. Well, I know everybody's a little worried about doing the 5.8, sounds like. That Jim, that's
I'm gonna keep emphasizing that, but
you can go down.
Go
It can
up
go down.
after
That's where I
what
am.
you pick.
I'm not agreeing to that.
So if you're that concerned over it, you could do the 5.5 and know that you could still go down to the 5.3 in September.
I would be
Are
okay.
we setting this today?
Not
Yes,
formally.
tentatively.
So
Tentatively,
you-
not for publication.
No, well, the number that you decide on today goes into a resolution that you will be voting on next Tuesday.
The one that we just agreed to with the blanket.
It's not advertised until August.
Gotcha, okay.
But it
So
will
you-
be advertised.
Yeah,
It will be advertised
yeah,
in August.
okay.
Well, the existing millage rate is 198,000 less than this year, for next year.
Yes.
And how much higher is the budget for next year over this year? I mean, what's that real number gonna be that we're gonna be in the hole?
I think we're gonna know.
Yeah, we got an idea, though.
Well, you just,
I mean, we can look at the budget. So this is gonna bring,
Your general fund budget's up 5.83%, page 20. It looks like about $500,000.
so this would add another 200,000 to that, if we were to go with existing. So we would be taking close to 700,000 out of reserves to cover the difference, instead of 500,000 right now. And that's, go back to my page 21. So it would take out about a half a month, or a little, almost a month out of reserves. So 942,000 is 1 month to reserves, according to the 6.3963 millage rate. So 700,000 coming out of reserves would be maybe 3 weeks of reserves coming out, and we think we're at about 9 months, Jim? Or is that too high of a guess right now with what we spent this year?
Go to page 25, please. I don't know what you got. You're trying to figure something out.
I'm trying to
that-
figure out how much we got in reserve,
that's
how many
a-
months, yeah,
Oh, well,
so we got in reserves right now.
well, on page 25, I'm giving you the options, and where it says, and I'm saying 25, this is at 97%. That's where I think I'll really be, okay? That's what I'm doing with these things. I think this is where I think I'm really gonna be.
aren't we
And-
always at 97%, pretty close?
We have been recently. There's a,
I mean, it's fair to assume, based on
page,
past history.
page 22, I gave you a history, okay? In 2024, based on the numbers I have, we're at about 98.8%. We're a pretty tight budget. But if you go down and you look at 22, and you look at 21, and you look at 20, you see we're at 97%, 97.39, 97.47. So that's about where I'm thinking we're gonna be, at about 97%. And if you look at your deficit or surplus, surplus is in brackets, so those are millage rates that are gonna increase your, that's gonna increase, this is on page 25, these are gonna increase your fund balance. You were looking at 5.175, according to this, I'm saying you would take 351,000 out of your, so you're taking half of your expenditures, okay? Because I came up with, just on average, I said 750,000. It depends what number you use. You take that 9,131,294 and divide it by 12, that'll give you your average monthly expenditures, okay? And that's what I was trying to do. In the red column there is trying to build up, I got 760,000. I was trying to build up 1 month of reserve in that column, okay? But your answer is right there. If you stay with the 5.175, and I spend 97%,
351.
my expenditures are at 97%, and if I collect the revenues that I budgeted, hopefully we'll do better with revenues. But the past 2 years, that has not been the case, so, our other revenues are down. They're trending down, for this year, but how long that will last, I don't have a, that good of a crystal ball. So you can see, you can see at majority, at the majority, I'm pretty close to break even there. I'm only using $12,600 in savings, basically, is what I'm trying to tell you there. So if you went with the 5547, my eyes aren't that good anymore, guys, I'm sorry, 5.547, you're almost at break even, okay? So anything, it just depends where you want to be. The 2/3 vote, I thought that was a good option because it gave me back $492,000. Not quite a month, but at least it gave me some money back. And then in my mind, I got union negotiations.
And you know what they're asking.
I do know, I have an idea, yes.
So you know that, what the impact could be.
Not 100%.
Of everything they've asked for is significant.
What?
The impact of everything they've asked for is significant.
Very significant.
Well, we're gonna have this meeting Thursday. You need to have an answer on this today, though, don't you?
You all have to vote on it next Tuesday. I need to know what number to put in. So
We have to vote on it before the administrative workshop on Tuesday.
there isn't an administrative workshop next Tuesday.
Oh, there isn't? I thought you said there was.
And we can't decide it at the executive meeting with the millage rate.
No, so when you have an
It has to
executive
be an
session,
open
you have to
meeting.
notice what we're talking about. And what we're talking about is supposed to be reserved for union negotiations. So we
Gotcha.
shouldn't be making a decision on something else.
Okay.
Even though things can be somewhat related, it shouldn't be on that.
Right.
Jim, since you have the inside crystal ball, without divulging anything, would the 5.54 still maintain a little bit of increase based on what you know about the potential contract negotiations?
I gotta stick with my 5.8709, okay? I just, because my crystal ball isn't that good on it.
Yeah,
But
okay.
yes, one of these items provides for that, for what I thought, the worst item on the list, but it's not all the items, so. Your best option is the 5.8907, you can always go down after your meeting if you feel like you can afford it. That at least gives you a break-even budget.
It gives you the
I
ability
mean,
to
preferably,
discuss
I'd
some of
like
these
to,
other
I would have liked to
things.
have had a surplus, so.
I am not too concerned about taking money out of reserves for 1 year.
We have very high reserves. I've done a little research. I mean, and to your credit, it's not a dig. I mean,
Built it up.
Have you looked at, cities, not the St. Pete's or the Largos?
I just asked it to give you some information on cities of reasonable size, and we have very high reserves compared to most cities our size.
For example, do you have an example of something, like Treasure Island or Indian Rocks or?
But again, I caution you to look at them
Yeah.
because of their different revenue streams. So even
Right.
though
Oh,
they're the
that's
same
right, they
size
do
as
have
us,
revenue.
they can be the exact same size.
Right.
And they can have 6 other revenue streams bringing
Yeah,
in
that's
more.
true.
I mean,
That
that's
We
the,
really have.
we're a little bit of an anomaly here in that we're waterfront but not beach.
Well, if
So
we're
we
gonna-
have all of the
if
same
we're gonna bite
risks
the
and
bullet-
not the same revenues.
And say that we're not gonna listen to our financial director
We're gonna bite the bullet and what?
and not listen to
Now
our
listen.
financial
Not
director.
listen to the
Yeah,
finance
okay.
department.
Not listen to
Hey,
Jim.
I'm used to that, don't worry about it.
Personally, I would go with existing millage rate if we were gonna do that. We'll dip in and just take a chunk right out of,
I'm in agreement with that, pending some clarification on how the rollback rate is less harmful than keeping the current rate. I just, anyway.
well, we
Wait,
need to pick a
what are
number today then.
I'm not sure what you're saying.
Where are you
Do
saying?
you wanna go with the
that's-
5.5 today, and then after we have our meeting on Thursday, and when we go back to make either the next vote or the final vote, and we can change it at the
You
second
could
time
change
around.
it next Tuesday if you wanted to in the meeting.
We
Yeah.
can change it up to like
I can live with
December, I mean, September 15th.
Negotiations.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
Change it down.
Linda, you
Change it
fine
down.
with that?
Yes,
Mark,
Down.
Yes, Mark.
down,
He's
You can only
asking
change
you.
it down.
5.5?
Yes.
And how about you?
5.5.
Yeah.
So let's do that, but
Yeah.
in mind, that, I know we've said it before, and we usually wind up sticking with what we've chosen on this day, that we do have to think about the people out there and what's happened to them. And what might be happening at the end of this year. We don't know what's gonna happen with this new storm season. So, I say we go with the 5.5470, and then we'll look at these other numbers as we get closer.
I think that's good, because people think, some of the people were saying they didn't think we cared, you know, because they were having
Yeah.
problems getting permits and all that kind of stuff. But
It just shows that we do care. We know that they've been through a lot and,
Well, they should know we care.
Yep.
We've wiped out
I would
fees, we
say, I
changed
gotta say,
everything.
and I gotta say, and I just wanted in the meeting, I think the city showed the amount of care that you all have
do.
significantly with
Yeah.
the waiver of fees, and I can say that staff has worked
Tirelessly.
incredibly difficult,
Yes.
and
Yes, they
incredibly hard in this difficult time
Yes.
to show how much the city cares. So anybody that feels that way, I would be happy to
More than
meet
other
with
cities
you,
have.
because I take major issue with anyone that takes that stance. You all did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Staff
Yeah, they
is
did.
killing
They
themselves.
did.
No,
So
this
I
city's
just
really
want to
Yeah.
say that I would be happy to meet with anybody that feels differently.
well, you always
So-
will have a negative.
I know. I
Yeah,
just want to,
yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to
No, we
say
have
that,
Keyboard warrior.
that,
Yeah.
yeah,
We
we
have done.
can't solve everyone's problems
Right.
all the time, and so that's as much as we want to. So anybody who feel like we don't care because we couldn't necessarily solve your problem, I apologize for that, but we're trying our best. I'll just say that, we're trying our best.
No, I think we've
So-
done a good job, and this shows that we are
Yeah.
trying to do it.
Yeah.
Jim, as far as the reserve, is how much, I don't know, how do I put this? The money that we're due back from FEMA, maybe, we hope, is that figured into any of this? Because, I mean, we've put out an awful lot of money in this last storm and are anticipating getting a portion of it or whatever back. That would be part of reserve money, wouldn't it, if we did get it? Am I saying that right?
I think we'd have to pay back certain things out of the right way, but it would
Right.
ultimately end up in an increase in the
Well,
Well,
general.
like for the pickup of the trash, we're talking $1 million there, right?
900 and some odd dollars.
So, I mean, that would be lovely to get that back and put it in reserve. But we just don't know when and if. It could be another year,
It
right?
could be
I
several.
mean, the way things
It
have
could be
gone
several
before.
years.
Yeah, and I don't have that built in yet. I've got some budget amendments to make to this year to record those expense. They're in our financials. You can see what we've spent. We haven't got the debris
Right.
back, and we're still
And,
waiting
you know,
for the
that's a
monitor.
factor.
Waiting.
I know,
Yeah.
but I mean, something you gotta think about.
But the-
It
but the
is,
thing- the thing with
it
city-
is in the atmosphere out there.
The thing with the city hall, though, if we depend on FEMA, this could go on for 2 years before we see anything from them, so you're gonna,
Does that tie in with the money already, that we've already asked for a return? The fact that we have to replace City Hall?
No.
No. Is that a no?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you're
Have you
saying
asked
that,
FEMA for money to do anything with City Hall?
right, the FEMA money we've asked for to replace the money we spent, that has nothing to do with City Hall.
Correct at this point,
Okay.
but we haven't, I mean, we spent 250,000 just immediately downstairs, I mean,
To clean it out.
We haven't got that back, and if we decide to rebuild, they're gonna wait for final numbers before they start giving us.
And that came out of the fund balance as well.
Yeah, that's out of our, it's coming out.
Everything came out of it.
It's coming out of our fund balance right
Yeah.
now, yeah. And, so that you may not get back, so it's hard to answer your question because FEMA's very, very slow. I mean, they're just.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, we weren't hit for so many years, and then to get that hit, and it puts a fear into you, to look forward to what might happen again. If it happened again this year, it would be disastrous for everybody. It already was disastrous, but it'd be unbelievable. So are we gonna go with the 5.54? Everybody's in consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's play with that number, and then we'll look at, hopefully, maybe we can bring it down. All right, I guess we're moving on to sewer,
Sewer and reclaimed water.
which have gone up. We're gonna have to adjust that fee, correct?
I don't know. Based on the conversation we just had.
We were pretty far down, and that was always been we were trying to get it at least up to where it was paying for itself, and I know we actually hadn't got there yet.
And the
As of
problem,
this year.
and the problem I have, Exhibit E, I don't have a numbered, I don't know if Brianna numbered your alls, but page 1 sewer enterprise fund, mine's not numbered.
Page 1 sewer, okay. Let's see, capital outlay, total expenditures.
Taking me a second here, because I'm looking at something, and I'm saying those numbers don't jive, okay? Because I'm not looking at the right page. I think it's Exhibit C, okay? Yes, yes, okay. You don't have Exhibit E that had the recommended increase, okay? Just real quick, run through on sewer. At May 31st, we had $2.1 million in cash in the sewer fund. The thing that made this very difficult is that year-to-date through April, sewer revenues were 93.4% of last year at the same time, so revenues are down on the sewer fund. Flows are down, processing flows are down, obviously because of and the storm took place in September, so we shouldn't be seeing a whole lot of that, but the revenues were down through April, so that's where you see my $1,720,000 is what I budgeted on the revenue. We did a 8% sewer fee increase last year, but it did not take effect actually until the end of March, so it's not even reflected in my comparison numbers. So my 8% did not show up in any of my numbers. So what I did is I took where I thought I was gonna be and I bumped it by the $1,000,008. By the 8% came to $1,842,000, but then I backed it down based on the year-to-date trend at 93.4%. That's where I came up with the $1,720,000.
Well, the 8% that we went up, wouldn't that just stay steady with what their increase was? It wasn't any additional, correct?
That's what I'm saying, in my comparison, April through last year, April this year, there was no 8% increase. My revenues were down to 93.4%, so they're down anyway. So I bumped, what I did is I bumped it up 8%, but then I took 94 and I brought it back down to keep in line with the trend. What I would expect the revenues to be would be closer to that $1,897,000 that we budgeted in 2025 is what I would really expect, but the flows are gonna be down now because of the storm coming into the new year. And so I budgeted a lower revenue, and I also tried to push down processing flows too. But,
Exhibit C, page 5, the email you got from Angela Miller shows a preliminary increase in water of 4.31% and wastewater of 9.55.
ours is the 9.55.
9.55. So wouldn't we just match that 9.55? I mean, that's, what is that per household, $1 or $2 a month or something like that? I don't think you have that sheet out here, but.
All I can really do, and what's making it difficult to analyze is the fact that we're not looking at a perfect year. So, there you go.
I'm thinking revenues are down because what people are, there's some people that aren't using.
We got 14 in our
Water.
building that don't have it. They don't even have a
Got it.
toilet.
Well, what about, and Lutheran Towers?
Yeah.
That's totally empty.
Well, what about?
The
fountains or
fountain's
whatever they're
totally
called?
empty.
There it is.
It's gotta have an impact. Is this up here?
And about all I did look at it, but I look at it in a little bit different perspective than y'all. I tried to make some adjustments to where I thought it really should be based on the full regular $1.8 million in revenues. Backed out our budget is a cash basis budget, it isn't a financial type thing. I backed out the capital expenditures, the 125,000, 140,000, and 25,000, but then I added back an estimate for depreciation, which is how the financial statements, and the short of it is I came up with a loss of 197,980. And if I divided that into the revenues, it's 10.74%. So I said to myself, well, we probably should do an increase of 9.5%. So that's what I asked Gerald to do that sheet late last night. That's for residential customers. The grade box, we don't have new numbers for St. Pete Beach. But we're still competitive with most of them, I noticed, until the volume got up to 6,500 gallons. At the 9.5% increase, we're at 76, and I noticed Pinellas County's at 74. So we're starting to pass the county, and we get to the higher volumes.
Do you have an idea
But-
of what average household uses? You got 4,300 gallons, you got 2,500.
Well, when I started doing this, I thought the
All in condos, so we
43
don't know.
was,
Yeah,
but,
remember the condos will get the bill for the 65.
Yeah, we never see,
yeah.
and that's the commercial.
And their rates are based on pipe size coming in, so totally different.
I'm thinking,
But all I can really do as a generalization is a percentage of revenue. So if I try to increase my revenues by 9.5%, there's two parts. There's a fixed and there's a variable. And just because I up those by that doesn't mean it's gonna happen that way. Because as somebody explained to me at City of St. Pete 20 years ago is, you know, people, the fixed is fixed. If it's, you know, so much per, it's fixed, but if people see that volume rate go up, they try to conserve, so.
6,500 for
So,
a private home seems high. I mean, we probably were between 43 and 5.
I thought the 4 was the average, but then we took a step up, thinking if somebody had a pool and maybe they had to fill the pool more often. So we just tried to give a range, but,
I mean, we don't
but I
really have
mean, we started this spreadsheet years ago, and that's what we came up with,
Okay.
is average.
I mean, insurance goes up, we go up that much. Electricity goes up, we go up that much. if they're gonna hit us with a 9.5% increase, we got no choice but to go up. We can't take a loss on that.
And that's where
And that's preliminary, so that could be more, be less. But when will you know what the final number will be? Before the budget's approved or after? March of next year? Sounds about right.
The problem with getting the fees, I budget for a full year, I did last year, and they didn't take effect till 6 months in because St. Pete wouldn't do anything until I had your final ordinance, which takes 2 readings. And with all the stuff went on last year, it really dragged on. So the sooner we let them know, but I don't think they'll know till maybe August. I know there's a meeting July 7th, Sean?
Yes.
Yeah, with the water people, but that's just to discuss it. They'd have, and, you know, I think it could
Why
be.
don't we give Jim the, let him go with, increase it by what we know now, what the preliminary rate is, and then give him the authorization to increase or decrease by whatever the final number is, if he can, before the budget is passed. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's just asking for them.
Yeah. That's fine, okay,
Okay.
all right,
So plan on a 9.5 for now.
yeah.
I just rounded it, I wasn't gonna do
Yeah,
9.55.
So we got next reclaim,
What's that?
reclaim water?
Yep. Um, Reclaim water, Exhibit D. I'm sorry.
I was just looking at the letter in the
Oh,
back,
oh,
yeah.
okay.
For,
Yeah.
that's Y26 with $760 per million gallon.
So they're increasing almost 15% the water charge in fiscal '26.
Yeah.
14.96%. So you know, the hard part about these is they give us their bills and it shows the flow they're billing on, and it's hard to come up with it. Some years it goes way up, some years it goes way down. I used 188.2 million gallons at the new rate. I came up with 143, 113. Last year, I actually used a little bit higher flow, 196.1. 3-year average is 190.4 million. So I'm in the ballpark, but it makes it hard to, you don't really know. The revenues are fixed for reclaimed water, and I don't know what the rates are off the top of my head. It's 10-something for residential, and it's per pervious acre for commercial properties. And they get charged regardless of whether they use reclaimed water or not. So there was no fluctuation. We collected what we thought we were gonna collect, and so,
We're in the same
It was
boat here.
$8 a month for about 10 years.
We're in the same boat
And then it
here as
went
we
up to
were
10.
with the other. I mean,
Yeah.
the increase is
Last
the
year, I
increase.
last year went up 6%, and I think it went up the year before, because we started a policy about 3 years ago that we were gonna keep up. We went for years without
Never changed.
without changing the rates, and just a few years ago, we said we were gonna. Those are your biggest expenses, and obviously, you know, salaries are going up 5% based on this, so, but I try to look at the net profit of where we would be on this reclaimed budget. Revenues that I projected are higher than expenses by 84,000, so it's not a crisis to increase fees here. But when I did my little calculation of what the financials might look like, I came up with a $27,000 loss, and it came to about 2.7% of revenue, so I was saying 9.25% increase if you wanted to. It's not a crisis, because on a cash flow basis, we're staying positive. So given
I say you increase with the increase. It fluctuates. What are you guys doing down there?
This thing's like barking at me. It's got growling. It sounds like somebody's got a puppy under the
He
table.
thought there was a spirit down here.
It's just, okay.
But, yeah, I mean, we just have to follow the increase. So whatever you recommend the increase is gonna be, we'll go with that.
9.25%.
So not the 14 you're showing over here.
No, because all your expenses are up and down, so like labor might be up 5%, but that's that one item, and it's the biggest item in your budget, but it's not that big of an item. Sewer is a big item, that's $1.6 million out of your budget, $1.8 million in revenue, so that's a big percentage. This is not, so I thought 9.25 would be adequate.
All in agreement with Jim's recommendation?
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
That's all I have for y'all.
That's it? How about the rest of you? I got a hand up.
So we're here at 9 o'clock tomorrow?
Thursday.
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 You can come tomorrow if you want, we won't be here Thursday.
You come say hi, we'll be here.
Gail, in case you didn't know, Publix has blueberries on sale.
You're gonna need to say that again.
didn't
so
hear
she
me.
can bake for Thursday.
I said, in case you didn't know, Publix has blueberries on sale for the Thursday meeting. Just a suggestion.
I'll see what I can get.
With almond flour?
No.
No, give us the gluten.
Yeah.
The rest of us like gluten.
Real quick, guys, if I may, staff's had some discussion going into hurricane season. During Helene and Milton, we were able to borrow Starlink satellite communication device from Pinellas County. I think we got, one in Helene, 2 in Milton, something like that. The thought is to purchase one of our own, still try to borrow extra, but at least have one in case they weren't available for Pinellas County. The initial cost would be $2,400 for hardware in 1 month. I do have that in this year's capital budget left over from bunker gear. We did not spend all that budget, so I would be able to do it with this year's budget. And then the monthly cost for 500 gigabytes of local priority data is $165 a month. I did put that in this year's telephone budget. So these are budgeted amounts. I just wanted permission to spend that money before making the purchase.
Is the service going to be active 12 months out of the year?
So my plan is that it would be. It doesn't have to be. I did reach out to other local municipalities, one of which our neighbors has this same plan. They were doing it to where they would activate it in hurricane season, turn it off, reactivate it. Starlink will let you do that, but they don't guarantee. In other words, if all the slots are filled up, when you go to reapply, there's no guarantee you hold your spot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to make sure we have that, so you got a
Yeah.
one-year contract.
And that's why I kind of went with the 500 gigabytes. Alex and I met last week to kind of discuss and make sure we're on the same page, since he knows a lot more about how these work than I do. There is a 1 terabyte plan, but that goes up to $290 a month. My thought would be if we did the 500 gigabyte for $165 a month, if we see one of those bad situations coming, I would go on the account and maybe try to upgrade it real quick, and then maybe back it down, after the storm. I think so too.
I'm sure if you exceed the 500, it gets pretty expensive, right?
It goes from 165 to 290 to 540 a month for 2 terabytes.
Okay.
He felt that, definitely at city our size, if we were in a situation like we were after Milton, we would easily use the 500 gigabytes. But on normal months, he recommended just, having the device, take it out once a month, test it, use some of the data since we're paying for it anyway. Get used to setting it up and using it, which obviously we would do. And then we have our own device number one.
So
as a reminder to me, this is a satellite phone versus a cell phone?
So it's satellite internet. So if we used a
Internet.
phone, we would use the, you know how on your cell phone you use the Wi-Fi mode?
Yep.
You would use it that way.
Oh, okay.
But it would allow you to hook a laptop up, which, you know, kind of how we did it after the storm. We were
Okay.
actually running computers in the fire station off of Starlink that was sitting out there.
It's actually better than regular Wi-Fi.
And when my brother and sister-in-law are sailing to Ireland, and they have Starlink, they call us all the time.
You know, I thought for, you know, satellite technology, 2,400 initial, I mean, I know it's a lot of money, but it didn't seem, you know, there's certainly.
So we could use,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the high water vehicle, just expense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys are okay with it, I'll.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
All set.
Yeah.
All right. That's all we got.
I think that's all I had.
Nobody? Okay, we're adjourned.
It's a good question, though.
Okay.
DC just called, he's actually on vacation, but